the Western world has responded to the Ukrainian crisis, Poland especially, and other Western countries, and how they have turned a blind eye and a deaf ear to the Palestinian issue. And last but not least, how the Western world has responded to um, the people, other, like the Syrians, for example, people that have fled Afghanistan due to, the upheaval in that country. So refugees from Black countries, Middle Eastern countries, the response has been so very different. And I find that as I've been having these discussions over the past few weeks, from the start of the Ukrainian crisis, I can't help but bringing these issues up as well and making that very bold statement, suggesting that it seems, as far as that the Western world is concerned, Black lives don't matter. Welcome. Your thoughts.
Well, I think there's a different. The position that I've taken on this was that what you've just said is all true, 100% correct. But at the same time, we need to remember that there is a Palestinian solidarity movement in Ukraine, um, and my view was that the Palestinians understand what Ukrainians are going through now, irrespective of politics. Therefore, to continually use the Palestinian cause to justify the double standards, which you all agree, I was saying is not productive. Palestinians have got a
Okay.
cause on hand, and they need to continue improving the solidarity work and international solidarity that they've created over the years, including in Russia, including in Ukraine. So I don't think it's my personal view is that we shouldn't continually use the Palestinian struggle to compare or criticize what's been happening in Ukraine. Yes, we do understand that they're double standards, but Palestinians must stay out and focus on their own cause and focus on further developing international solidarity, including in countries like Russia, Ukraine, South Africa, anywhere, everywhere else in the world, because their cause still stands, and we need to encourage them to do so instead of them taking sides in this war.
Okay, what you also talk about in your piece, which is very important, and that will take us then to the situation of Syrians, the dispossessed Syrians and Bashar al-Assad. You say that with the focus on Ukraine, it's easy to forget that Russian President Putin supports his Syrian counterpart, Assad's continuing destruction of his country. And of course, the maiming of women and children, including here you bring in the Palestinian refugee situation in Syria. So let's look at that issue. And when we talk about the Syrian situation, I mean, that country is all but decimated, is it not?
Decimated by the same person that Muslims find convenient at the moment to support, who goes by the name of Vladimir Putin. We need not to forget that this is the same guy who's gone into Syria and assisted a henchman there in that country, a tyrant who went on killing thousands of Muslims, including, by the way, as I've said in that piece, Palestinian refugees in refugee camps such as Yarmouk. So Putin is dripping with blood in his hands. And what's been troubling over the past couple of days is when you start seeing Muslim wanting to side, particularly South African Muslims, wanting to side with Putin simply because this time around he's on the other side facing the Americans. But we're quick to forget that is the same culprit who has been killing our people in the Middle East and Muslims.
Ibrahim, I've lost you there. Hello, Ibrahim.
Particularly in places like Chechnya. And we must not forget that as we see this double standard that are currently taking place, um, in, um, in, in Ukraine.
Okay, that also brings into question the issue because this invasion or this war is right on the doorstep of the Bosnians as well. Do you think they're going to be dragged into it? And I lost you there for a minute or two when you spoke about South Africans taking sides. What about the Muslims in Russia, the Muslims in the Ukraine, the Chechen Muslims? It's going to impact very on a large scale on Muslims in that region. How's this all going to play out? We are going to see the loss of very many Muslim lives on opposite sides of the fence. Thembisa, are you there? Hello? Oh, I'm battling with the lines this morning. Dear good people, listeners of Salam Media, please do bear with us, inshallah. This is such an important discussion. Ebrahim has such a keen mind, and I love his reasoning around these matters. So please don't go away. We are going to reconnect with him in a minute or two, inshallah. Stand by. Oh no, this is not funny, man.
And 1 p.m. for the most intriguing conversations.
And what we used to do is I used to take the school van and drive around in the rural area with her.
Not necessarily to change it completely. You are still the same person.
Parenting advice.
You need to make sure that your children know who they are.
Awareness on the world around you.
They made that decision. They recognized the harm that it was doing. And
health tips.
It brings a form of relief.
Legal advice.
Can you enforce a person under the Bill of Rights?
And getting up close and personal with South Africans doing great things. All this and more on Salam Media, the best of humanitarian journalism.
Breaking stereotypes, moving boundaries, joining hands. Salam Media. Humanity sets the agenda.
9:40 exactly. We are talking with Senior Fellow at Africa-Asia Dialogues. That's Thembisa Ebrahim Fakude. We are talking about keeping the Palestinian struggle out of Putin's war in the Ukraine. And the big question that comes up is the fate of the Muslims that are living in that part of the world, the Ukrainian, Russian, Chechen, Bosnian, all of those Eastern European Muslims. Undoubtedly, this is creating a problem where they are ending up fighting against each other as well. So, Ebrahim, back to you. Unfortunately, we lost you there. Do you want to pick up from where we left off a minute ago? Ebrahim, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Ebrahim,
Yes, I'm here, but I
Thembisa,
can
did
hardly
you
hear
hear my
you.
question? Can you hear me now?
I couldn't hear the question. I can
Okay,
hear you,
let's
but I
pick up.
couldn't hear the question. Do you want to repeat it, please?
Okay, can we pick up from where we left off? The issue around South African Muslims not, trying to take sides in this matter, very especially supporting the Russian position. And let's look at the fate of our Eastern European Muslim brothers, that is the Chechens, the Ukrainians, the Russian, the Bosnian Muslims, who might just get drawn into the conflict as well.
Yeah, that's true. I think they are inevitably going to get drawn into this conflict. But we need to be careful not to take sides in this politics that's currently taking place. But we have to be strong in terms of condemning the atrocities that are currently taking place, irrespective of who the victims are.
No, unfortunately, this ain't working, Ebrahim. We're
Trinity
going to
in
have to cut it there. Ibrahim, I've lost you yet again, and I do apologize. I'm just not sure what is going on. Nasreen has said we're going to try and get you on a normal call, but I'm not sure if we have enough time to get through. But let's just try that very quickly. Inshallah, please stand by.
My heart yearns to be in your company. Oh, hey, proclaim your call, setting shackled minds free. Hey, defend your person and fulfill every decree. Fight at your side, repel each enemy. See your face.
Breaking stereotypes, moving boundaries, joining hands. Salam Media.
لا تضل وحدي أو كيف السبيل.
Humanity sets the agenda.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. With about 5 minutes to the wrap up of this interview with Senior Fellow at Africa Asia Dialogues, Ebrahim Fakude, I'm going to hand over to him to pick up from where we've left off and hopefully uninterrupted get through this interview. Very important issues that he's raised in this article and a few questions that I've put to him. Welcome back, Ebrahim. And do you want to continue from where we've left off?
Yeah, sure. I'm sorry about that. I don't know what's going on with the lines, but anyway, just to continue, I think what will happen is that the Muslims in Russia and the surrounding areas will, of course, get involved. But I'm not quite sure whether they'll be on the side of Putin, because Putin has committed a lot of atrocities and killed thousands of Muslims in Russia, particularly in territories such as Chechnya and other surrounding areas. So we are likely to see Muslims getting involved, but I don't think they'll be on the side of Russians. But besides, just the level of atrocities and the level of trauma that the people of Ukraine, irrespective of their color, race, or religion, supposed to move all of us. And I don't think it's time for politicking right now. It's time for us to stand with justice. It's time for us to stand with people who are attacked. We don't have any Ukrainian soldiers on the ground in Russia, but we have Russian soldiers who are creating and committing unseen or unheard of atrocities in Russia. At the moment, in some cities in Russia, Putin is suffocating the residents there. And the aim is to suffocate them until they come out and they'll be bombed afterwards. And that's injustice. It's got nothing to do with Palestine. Yes, we understand that the Western world has tended to act with double standards when it comes to atrocities in Palestine. But this time around, for me, to see a 90-year-old woman stranded inside her house and who cannot access water, all other necessities because there are bombs continually falling in her vicinity is problematic. And we need to take that position. They're the agents of now. And it's been troubling for me to be listening to Muslims in South Africa. The first thing they will say is basically saying, it serves them right because the West has always acted indifferently when it comes to Palestine. But we have an issue in hand, and that issue's got nothing to do with Palestine. And this is why I decided to write a piece I wrote to say, don't drag the Palestinian struggle into this. It's got nothing to do with them. And let us continue supporting the Palestinian struggle. But we've got a humanitarian agency, people like us who are facing this tragedy. And we have to show sympathy. We have to stand with them against the tyrant called Putin who continues to bomb them.
questions, and I beg your indulgence on the first question. I know you have in your article indicated, and you've been repeatedly saying it on the interview this morning, don't bring the Palestinian issue into the Ukrainian situation. But I'm just really wanting to know, what are your thoughts on the fact that Israel has opened its doors to 10,000 plus Ukrainians to settle on Palestinian land? With that in the back of your mind, how do you move forward on this issue?
It's totally incorrect and it must be condemned, as we've always done, that the Palestinians who are lingering in refugee camps in Syria and Jordan and other places, they've got the right to return, not Europeans who were not forcibly removed from Palestine and Israel proper, where most of the Palestinian lands were confiscated by Israel in 1948 and 1967. Those lands belong to the Palestinians, and we must push for the Palestinians to return to their land. We can't allow this time around to have the Ukrainians allowed going to Israel, and yet the Palestinians are not allowed to go back to their lands. It is legitimate, and it goes against the international law. And that's where our struggle should be. Our struggle should be that we do not allow and accept that the Ukrainians, who have other alternatives, by the way, throughout Europe where they can go to, they can go back to Palestinian lands and occupy the Palestinian lands when the Palestinians are not allowed to go in there. So that's the position, and it will never change. I'm not changing it, and I insist that as we see many Jews undertaking Aliyah from Ukraine, it has to be condemned because that land does not belong to them; it belongs to the Palestinians. But having said that, we must also condemn the atrocities of killing of women and children. I mean, my heart was moved when I saw those prams at the border of the Polish border, hundreds of prams that were abandoned by people running away from these bombs, women and children, and old people who could not even escape are stuck in Ukraine. I can't be taking a position simply because they don't look like me, or somehow they happen to be in a region or a continent which sided with the Israelis at some point. It's got nothing to do with that. It's got a lot to do with humanity, justice. And here we are at the moment facing this inhumane treatment of human beings. What do we do? Must we call on politics? Wrong politics that were, by the way, practiced by very few individuals, while we see that the atrocities taking place. By the way, the last issue I'd like to raise, that is going to be controversial, and I want to be controversial, of course, I'm going to drop the line soon because there's no more time. But imagine what happens in South Africa or anywhere in the world when the Jews are attacked and when the Jews are oppressed. Are we going to fold our hands and say, well, they deserve it because they've been oppressing, or some people in their name have been oppressing the Palestinians over the years? No, I don't think so. I'll be the first one on protest if the Jews of South Africa are oppressed or if the Jews of South Africa are attacked. But the current rhetoric that's coming from South Africa is really troubling, because you can see that indications are that those that actually committed crimes against us in the past, when their time comes, will just fold, watch, and smile in glee. And I don't think that's the right thing to do. I think we should stand firm for injustice whenever it is, even if, by the way, is against ourselves, that the Quran tells us all the time. We have to all the time stand for justice. And it's time for us to stand up and be counted in Ukraine, to say it's wrong to have women, children, and elderly oppressed and bombed non-stop by Putin.
Absolutely. It is the Muslim position, and from a humane situation, whether you're Muslim or not, I think you should be viewing it in that light. Finally, I do need to put this question to you. Before the invasion, Putin was making noises about the threat of NATO's being literally on its doorstep, and that's the reason why they were threatening to invade the Ukraine. Do you not think that it's bigger than the situation of NATO? The fact that Putin has gone in and has caused the devastation that he has kind of suggests that there was a more loaded agenda apart from NATO being on Russia's doorstep.
No, indeed. I mean, Putin is a tribalist. One of the reasons that he cited was that the Russian-speaking people of Ukraine were under the attack of the neo-Nazis. I mean, these are Russians speaking in Ukraine, I don't think it had something to do with.
Okay, we've lost
Wisconsin.
Ebrahim Fakude there. The line's going all wonky on us. We're going to have to leave it there. Inshallah, till the next time we have him on air again, we might pick up on this matter. My apologies once again, but we're just having a dreadful technical morning. But do stay with us for our final interview. 9:52 a.m. right here on News and Views.